Hello, this is Roy with SecuRam Systems Technical Support, here today to show you a Tech Talk video on how to replace a SecuRam entry pad and lock. Now the entry pad itself in this video is not just the SecuRam Basic, this is the SecuRam Basic-P, which means that the housing itself is plastic. Everything else logic-wise is the same. It's the same quality and build as far as the electronics are concerned. The only thing that's different is the actual casing. The back of the display stand, we have our swingbolt, EL0601 swingbolt. And the reason I have it on the stand is I want to show you how to replace it if it's on a safe. So pretend the stand itself is a safe. And without further ado, let's see how we can replace the Entrypad and lock. So the first thing you want to do is, of course, open the safe door. After you open up the safe door, you're going to keep that open throughout the whole process and never shut it until you've tried and did a couple tries with the door open, throwing the bolts. You know, basically we want to try as much as we can without actually closing the door before we do so. That's obviously just for our own protection to make sure we don't get locked out in case we change the code and we change it to the wrong code and we press the wrong button. There's many different ways you can actually get caught in a bind if we close the door. So always keep the door open whenever you're doing any sort of change code, programming in general, or when you're swapping out parts or you're changing parts, because you always want to test first before you jump into the deep end. So let's see how this works. So on the -P, you push up on it vertically, and you notice how it pops. And then you pull horizontally straight towards you, and you'll hear that cable being unbound and to length here. It hangs just like a picture frame, so you just you stuff the cable back in. If you're going to hang it back up into the little cavity here. Just to show you again how this works. So you stuff the cable into there, you place it onto the safe, and then you push down, and it clicks in. So again, to take it off the safe, you're going to push up till you hear it click, pull out, and at this point, disconnect the battery. Always disconnect the battery first. This used to be something we would require more or less for every type of removal. And we still do to this day. And now, as you can see, what I did there was I took off the 4-pin cable here. And let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on that so we can see that in the video. Is it out of focus here? But essentially this is the retainer clip. And what I always recommend to customers when it comes to taking it off is if you use the sawing effect, pushing down and up. Now, hopefully you can see that in the video there. So I'm pushing down and up on the cable, and it naturally will pull itself out. And then after that, once we have it unhooked, you'll see there's a tab. And we want to press that tab and then pull it out of the socket. And now we freed the entry pad from the safe. So we can set this aside now at this point. And then if we were to go behind the safe door, we have our lock. And our lock has really 5 screws. And these 5 screws are used to mount it to the safe. These 3 are to mount it to the safe itself. And then these 2 screws are for the relocker plate. Typically. Sometimes you see that where the relocker plate is used on different screws, it's highly dependent upon the safe and the safe manufacturer. But in this case, most safe manufacturers do use these screws for the relocker plate or cable or bar. So to take it off the safe, we're going to go ahead and use our screwdriver and unscrew these 3 screws. Of course, if there's a relocker plate attached and covering these screws, you got to remove that first by removing the relocker screws, as I pointed out earlier. So we got 1, 2, and 3. And now that it's off the back of the safe, you'll notice the cable itself comes right through the spindle hole there. So usually there's a bunch of white dust that comes out of there depending if it's fire rated or not. And this is our lock. We've taken the lock completely off the safe at this point. Now again, I did not remove these screws because we did not, I mean, this is just an example without a safe of what it would look like. Typically these are being used on most safes and will be required to remove in order to remove it from the safe. Now to install it back on, the first thing you want to do is take the cable from the lock, and then we're going to thread that through the back of the safe. And depending on the safe and whether it's right-handed or left-handed, we'll change this, of course, but typically you can just make sure it's guided through the channel here on the swing bolt lock. After, of course, you've threaded it through, and make sure it's not being pinched. I'm going to pick this up here and maybe bring it in a little closer so you can see here. What I'm trying to do, the goal here is to make sure that it's not being pinched or compressed, and using that channel to run the wire through and through the hole. So on the back end, that cable is actually free to move and it won't get pinched. Now this is extremely common for safe manufacturers and in general factories when they put together these safes, that sometimes they put them together and they pinch this cable, and what it can do is expose that wiring and actually ground it to the safe, which can cause major problems right out the gate whenever you first purchase a safe. So now that we've wired it through the channel, we're going to go ahead and take our screwdriver and just repeat the process but backwards. So we're going to go ahead and screw in the 3 screws. And number 3. After, of course, screwing them in, you might want to just double check. Make sure that cable has still got some play in it and it's able to actually be moved around a little. And then we go back to the front of the door of the safe and we take our new entry pad. We flip that over, and of course with our new entry pads, typically when we send them out, they'll come with a cable. Depending on whether they reuse the cable or not, you may need to disconnect it from the new entry pad. And then just so to get it ready for the current cable, you're going to go ahead and take this cable and plug it right back in. There's only one way it can fit in. And then you're going to take the 4-pin cable and thread it right back on to that retainer clip. Now that's really important, even though it seems minor. What that does is it allows the end user, when they purchase the safe and they're using it in every year or so and they're changing the batteries, that they don't accidentally pull off on that connector piece, which would then connect it, or it would not allow them to open the safe because it won't be able to talk to the lock. So now we go ahead and connect up the 9-volt battery, and then we, again, like we did at the beginning of the video, stuff that cable back into the center of the entry pad, place it onto the safe, and push down. And now let's see if we have connectivity. And there you are. So one thing to look out for in troubleshooting tips for this troubleshooting tip applies to all of our SafeLogic basics. I mean, all of our SafeLogic series, really, for that matter. So it's very important that this is said, that if you connect up the entry pad and lock to the safe and you press a button and you don't get any response, I mean, we're going to get response from this because it works, but let's say you don't get a response, the very first thing you want to try is, of course, check the battery. The second thing you want to try is you want to definitely look at that 4-pin cable, because that's the lifeline. If that 4-pin cable itself is not inserted into the entry pad all the way, and it doesn't have a connection to the lock, when you even with the battery inserted onto the Entrypad, you will not be able to get any response out of it. So even though it's a working unit, without a lock attached, it won't respond to any button pushes or any indication that it's even working. So bear that in mind whenever you're doing your replacement, that if you run into an issue like that, to look at the 4-pin cable and the battery and ensure they're fully seated, not grounded out, brand new batteries. And also keep in mind we don't use lithium ion, so it has to be a standard run-of-the-mill alkaline battery, and you should be set. If you have any questions, always drop them down in the comment section here, or if you want an immediate response, give us a call here at Technical Support SecuRam, 805-988-8088. My name is Roy Morris. You could even ask for me if you'd like, and I'm more than willing to help you out over the phone with guiding you on how to replace that Entrypad and lock. So until next time, have a great day.